For the first time, I think, on the program, Staten Island's own Representative Nicole Malliotakis. How are you, ma'am?
Hi, how are you? Good to be with you.
Well, I'm better now that I understand that you're taking official action or trying to against this Jamaal Bowman. I just want to remind America, we have people sitting in the D.C. jail today who never pulled a fire alarm to stop anything. Some of them were waved into the Capitol building. I'm not talking about violent people. I'm talking about people who were roaming around the Capitol for 20 seconds and left the building and got caught up in that. The books being thrown at them. And here you have a member of Congress who pulls a fire alarm, pretends he doesn't know what a fire alarm is, specifically obstructing an official proceeding of Congress. And that was his intention. And the Democrats are defending him. Let me ask you something. What are the Republicans going to do in the House?
Well, look, I talk to members each and every day that want to make sure that he's held accountable, and that means either a censorship or expulsion. I've introduced a resolution today with some co-sponsors to expel him. And look, the timeline just doesn't make sense. And, of course, the police are still investigating, but we know what we know, right? It was caught on video. It was caught and confirmed by Capitol Police on video, and there's photographs. And his timeline that he presents simply just does not make sense. When you read the time, so look at this. 11:59 was when the motion to adjourn by Catherine Clark, who's the leader there, took place. After that, it was 12:05, just 6 minutes later, when we saw the Jamaal Bowman pull the fire alarm. He says that he was in a rush to vote. However, he actually didn't go and vote until nearly an hour later. So that just shows you he wasn't rushing to go anywhere. So I believe he was specifically there to disrupt the proceedings. He created panic. And this is a person who was a school principal. He knows the old fire alarm trick more than anybody. And the fact that he thought it was appropriate to pull this fire alarm to disrupt the proceedings has to be punished. And so we've introduced this resolution to expel him today, and we will see when we'll be able to get a vote.
I want you to ignore the TV lawyers, some of whom are more political than legal, and who say this is a wrong move or this is preposterous. I don't even understand that. If a kid in a high school does that, I mean, they can be charged criminally in some states, in some counties, in some townships and so forth, because it's a serious thing when you're pulling a fire alarm and people are rushed out and people are wondering if there's a fire and people can get hurt. And do we really need to explain this and debate this to realize that what this man did was attempting to obstruct an official proceeding of Congress? There's nothing to debate, really, is there?
Well, actually, it is a violation punishable up to 6 months in prison according to Washington, D.C. code, but it's a felony for disrupting the congressional proceedings, and so that's what elevates it. So I do believe that he will be charged with a crime at some point, and we'll see how this plays out. But you're absolutely right. You can't ignore it. You can't turn a blind eye. This sets a terrible example for our young people. And in addition to that, like I said, he was a high school principal, and in his school, it would be either suspension or expulsion. And that's why I felt expulsion was what was warranted here, because this is the United States Congress. It is not a New York City public high school.
I'd like you to listen to AOC, is what I call her, AOC on CNN yesterday with Jake Tapper. Cut 14, Mr. Producer. Go.
There was an interesting moment over the weekend when your New York colleague, Congressman Jamaal Bowman, and he's under investigation for this now after Capitol Police say he pulled a fire alarm in one of the House office buildings. Democrats were trying to delay a final vote on the bill. There he is pulling the fire alarm. He says it was an accident. He thought pulling the alarm would open a door based on the fact that the doors to his right there were locked, and there was a sign that he said I think someone said it was confusing. I'll be honest, it doesn't really make sense to me, his explanation. Have you talked to him? What's going on there?
I mean, listen, I think if you actually do see some of the photos of the signs, I think there's something to be said about The government's about to shut down. There's a vote clock that's going down. The exits that are normally open in that building were suddenly closed.
So you pulled a fire alarm?
So what I am here to say is that House administration...
You know what? I don't care what you're here to say because you're a little propagandist. So we don't really care here what you have to say. I'm just using as a foil as one of these Democrat morons. Now, is there any question, Congresswoman, that the fire alarm itself said fire and was red? And when you're like 4 years old, you see these all over the place and you're told don't pull that unless there's a fire? Forget about what's on the door, for crying out loud. He pulled the fire alarm. He didn't pull the door. He pulled the fire alarm, right?
That's exactly right. And so you might be able to give him the benefit of the doubt if he had pushed the door open and the alarm went off. But that's not what he did. And the timeline, as I said, I mean, if he was rushing to vote, he pulled the alarm at 12:05 and did not vote until 1:04. That doesn't sound like somebody who is rushing. Not to mention that there are so many different ways to get to the Capitol, right? We have a tunnel that connects Cannon to the Capitol building where you don't even need to go through any doors. And so, you know, it just makes absolutely no sense. And that's why I think the facts eventually will catch up to him. And I think that we will get some type of response here that I think is appropriate.
How many other members of Congress were so confused that they started pulling fire alarms?
You know what?
None.
There's an interesting group here.
Yes. He's the one guy. Everybody else knows how to go and vote. They vote all the time. They go from this place. I was confused by the sign on the door, so I pulled the fire alarm. Boy, Marxists are stupid people, aren't they, Congresswoman? Now, let me ask you this. If you accidentally pull an alarm, which is absurd on its face, don't you stand there, excuse me, or maybe call the Capitol Police or look concerned, or do you just walk away? What did he do?
Yeah, so what we know is that he did not notify the Capitol Police immediately to explain what had occurred, and that's certainly what I would have done if I had accidentally done something of that magnitude. So everything he has said is just not made sense. And I think that, again, the most important thing that I see is a timeline in which it was an hour between he pulled the alarm and he went to vote, and he said he was rushing to vote. Mm-hmm. So it makes absolutely no sense.
Now, if there's a federal... yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, now, these federal judges in Washington, you know, they don't give an inch to these January 6 people who are parading and trespassing. Again, we're distinguishing them from people who, you know, were attacking the cops. And they wouldn't buy this for 2 seconds if it was a Trump supporter. But let me ask you this also. I'm reading here a talking points that were put out by Bowman's office to his fellow Democrat. And we're hearing these talking points now, but here's a line that I want the American people to hear. Here's this reprobate. He pulls a fire alarm to stop the voting in the House of Representatives. Comes up with all these cockamamie excuses. He doesn't wait there to tell the cops, because they can figure out where that alarm's coming from. It's all computerized. And say, I did it, it was an act. He walks away. And among the talking points he puts out, or his office does, is, I believe Congressman Bowman when he says this was an accident. Next sentence. Republicans need to instead focus their energy on the Nazi members of their party before anything else. Did he really put that out?
His office put that out, and it was shocking. And it's so disturbing because this is not the first time you've heard the socialist squad use these terms lightly. Remember when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez went to the southern border and referred the individuals in the southern border to be in concentration camps? Mm-hmm. And now we have Jamaal Bowman saying we should be pivoting to Republican members, Nazis. I mean, really, that is such an insult. What an insult to the people who lost people who were murdered in the Holocaust. It really diminishes the term when you throw it around like that as if it has no meaning. And so he got a lot of heat for that, and then he had to go on Twitter and say that it was done without his approval from his staff. Well, you know what? Maybe he should bring his staff to the Yad Vashem Memorial in Israel so they could learn about the Holocaust. And they should pick up a history book to learn about the Holocaust and the atrocities before they start referring to other members of another party as Nazis.
And this was provided to Politico, and you're right. He came under withering attack for this, and then he says, I just became aware that in our messaging guide, why do you need messaging guidance? You pulled the damn alarm. Why don't you apologize, say, whatever. But there was inappropriate use of the term Nazi without my consent. That's a weird way to put it, don't you think? What, we need his consent? I condemn the use of the term Nazi out of its precise definition. It is important to specify the term Nazi to refer to members of the Nazi Party and neo-Nazis. Now, this guy doesn't care. He'll get reelected 5,000 times, won't he?
Well, it's interesting because there's rumor that George Latimer, who is the Westchester County executive, who's certainly more moderate in comparison to the socialist member, may be waging a primary against him. So it's yet to be seen what will happen. And remember, he's kind of been out there prancing around as trying to challenge Mayor Adams, trying to move everyone in the city to the left, along with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And shamefully, they've been successful in many ways. The Democrats have become so scared of their own shadow that they just seem to go more and more to the left for survival. And that's always what's bothered me about this particular group of Democrats in New York City, is they care more about self-preservation than actually standing up against these socialist members whose policies have just been so disruptive. But they are the party of lawlessness, right? We've said that over and over again, whether it be the open borders, the massive illegal immigration, whether it be the bail reform that releases criminals back onto the streets over and over in New York, or whether it be just the constant push to release people from jail. It seems that they are the party of lawlessness. So let's see what happens here if the law finally catches up to them.
And a reporter caught up with Jamaal Bowman, and here's what he said. Cut 12, go.
Do you still stand by your statement that when the fire alarm was an accident?
You know, I don't know why this has gotten so much attention. I was literally just in a rush to go vote, man. That's all it was.
Are you afraid of any repercussions, either from leadership or from legally from Capitol Police?
I mean, listen, I take responsibility for what I did, but like I said, I was in a rush to go vote, and, investigation will sort everything else out.
Have you talked to Jeffries about it?
Oh, yeah, of course, since day one, yes.
How was that conversation?
Well, I got to keep that between me and the leader, so I'm not going to share that publicly. Yeah, but we've been in touch with each other.
Mm-hmm. Has Jeffries condemned this?
He has not. He said he's waiting to see the video, which may very well not be released. But
well, there's enough that has been released, unless you're Helen Keller. It's right there. Exactly. You can see with your own two eyes.
No, you're absolutely right. That's why I say there's been enough to be released, but he says until he sees the video, he may not comment on it. But again, he said it there again. You see how he says, I was in a rush to go vote, yet between the action of pulling the alarm and actually voting, it was an hour.
Are you amazed on a related but partially separate subject how the Democrats hold their ranks and how the Republicans don't?
Yes. Look, I think, look, I'm a Republican from New York City, so I've lived under one-party rule at the city, state, and federal level for the last few years, and it's been miserable. I think people are starting to wake up. You saw Lee Zeldin almost beat Kathy Hochul. That was refreshing, but it was because of all those people who fled
By the way,
New York.
If that election were today, he'd win.
I agree with you, because this migrant crisis that we're facing right now at the hands of the Democrats' policies is what would put it over the top. So it is frustrating for me to see that people will still vote for these individuals who have made their lives miserable at every turn. And, if you're listening in New York City, you know what I'm talking about, right? It's just the perpetual crime. It's the quality of life issues that have deteriorated. It's the high property taxes, the cost of living. They want congestion pricing now. They want to charge you $23 to drive into Manhattan. All these things. It's like all they do is make you miserable. So why do you keep voting for these people? But on the federal level, it's interesting to see because the Democrats always stick together. And sadly, you alluded to this. I follow you on Twitter. I mean, the way that we have certain members who are always looking to undermine the Republican leadership, our speaker, and the conference. I mean, the other day was a perfect example. We had the opportunity to pass a conservative stopgap that reduced wasteful spending, was almost a 25% across-the-board cut of non-defense discretionary funding. And on top of it, our Border Security Act, which is the number one priority of our conference, to reinstate the policies of President Trump. And we had Matt Gaetz and a couple of members just undermine us and vote with the Socialist Squad and the Democrats to kill it. So, I mean, unfortunately, we see that the Republicans don't stick together like the Democrats do, which is why they're sometimes winning messaging.
Well, he just filed his, whatever the hell they filed, to remove the Speaker of the House. So this will be the big motion to vacate. So this will be the news 24/7, blaring all over the place, rather than the border, rather than the impeachable offenses of Biden, rather than anything. And I don't know. I'm very concerned we're going to lose the House if this stuff keeps up. I'll be honest with you.
Well, I do share that concern. I feel that we have a lot of great policy ideas, but if we're undermining each other and trying to, fight with each other as opposed to fighting with the Democrats, fighting with the Senate, right now our entire battle should be fighting with the Senate in this appropriations process to ensure that we get border security, that we shut down Biden's open borders. That should be our main objective. We can do that, coupling it with cutting wasteful spending and the other things that all the members want. But why are we pivoting now to Speaker McCarthy and making it seem like he's not doing a good job? I mean, this is a guy who implemented good government reforms that we were all asking for. There's no more 2,000-page bills that spend trillions of dollars. We have single-subject bills. We have time to review them, 3 days minimum. He has really implemented all the reforms we wanted because we didn't like the way Nancy Pelosi ran the place. He helped us avert a default, a shutdown. He helped us save the taxpayers trillions in the process. And I trust Speaker McCarthy to be the one to negotiate, the best person to negotiate on behalf of our conference going into this appropriations. But what the little group did was they actually took away his leverage to negotiate, right? By undermining our legislation to secure the border and to cut wasteful spending. And so we go in here now without necessary leverage.
You have nothing.
And we're already it's already 2-1, right? They got the White House, they got the Senate. We're already at a disadvantage. So if Republicans don't stick together, I am concerned what the outcome will be because we're trying very hard to deliver for the American people. But if we have people within our own party that are working with the Socialist Squad to shoot down our bills, that's a problem.
Yeah, I'm laughing at what he says here. He says in part that Kevin McCarthy won't be the Speaker of the House, or he'll be the Speaker of the House working at the pleasure of the Democrats. This guy's working with the Progressive Caucus, the Marxists in the Democrat Party. He's counting on them. It's being reported everywhere. I mean, and then you have Rosendale saying in this site, The Messenger, that he's glad that the Republicans didn't have a strong victory in the midterm because that way 6 or 7 people can really control what's going on. Are you guys nuts? I mean, do you understand who Benedict Arnold was? And by the way, I'm a conservative. I have supported government shutdowns my entire life, even when I worked in the Reagan administration. This isn't about conservatism. This isn't even about cutting anything. What they did now is all those proposed cuts that were coming, that were negotiated by members of in many cases, the Freedom Caucus, and securing the border, they're off the table now. And you're right. The Republicans in the House have no leverage against the McConnell-led Republicans in the Senate. It's just off the table. And everybody keeps saying, yeah, well, we're shut. It's irrational. Anyway, I want to thank you.
One thing I'll just say the one thing that can save us right now is if the Senate Republicans stick with the House Republicans, we pass the remaining 8 appropriation bills. There's 12 total, and we dump them on the Senate. So far, if the Senate Republicans have to help Schumer pass any appropriations bills on their side. So if they don't, in December, they really took away a lot of our leverage when they joined in with that fiscal package at the end of the year. We hope that the Senate Republicans won't help Schumer pass their appropriation bills, but instead wait for the House to do ours. We send them over to Schumer, and then that's when we have the leverage to negotiate something I think that could be very good for the American people, that will reduce inflationary spending, will hold the line, cut excessive wastefulness, and making sure that we do secure our border. But you got to make sure that the Senate Republicans stick with us, and that Matt Gaetz and these guys get on board. Let's do the appropriation bills individually, as they said they want. That's what they said they want, and we all want to do it that way. So let's stick together and move forward. Let's have this fight with the Senate Democrats, not each other.
All right. Thank you, Congresswoman. Take care of yourself and keep hammering away at that Bowman.
Thank you very much. Great to be with you tonight.
You too. God bless.